when we first see Obi-Wan, we are given exactly what I think is not just the theme for this premiere episode, but for the entire series, and that is finally answering the question, where does spam come from?
You're listening to
Path of the Jedi
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this exhilarating adventure. And yeah, wow, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's almost that I can't put my emotions, my feelings into words. Like I have no words for how I'm feeling right now. I've run out of vocabulary because there's just so many things going on, especially now, well, in Star Wars, and especially now that Kenobi is here. It's upon us. As of the release of today's show, we are 4 episodes into Kenobi. Okay, so the way one of the biggest things for me about this particular show and what it means outside of the plot and the story and all that stuff, for me, it's connecting so many eras of my own life into one show, right? Obviously with Kenobi, we've got Ewan and whoever else is going to be making an appearance on this show. We've got the present time version of them, right? And so with Ewan, and we know that Hayden's going to be coming back into the show as well as Darth Vader. With these two, it connects us back to 25 years ago, I guess it was, 20 to 25 years ago when the prequel trilogy came out. And then, of course, with the other characters, with Obi-Wan himself, the character, that connects us back 45 years to the original trilogy. So all these different, times of my life are now suddenly thrust together in this one show, and it's almost overload for me. Right? It's almost overload, and then on top of that, then we have the story, the plot, everything that connects the prequel trilogy, the Clone Wars, to the original trilogy, the New Hope, especially. I like everything that we will see, I'm sure, in this particular series will connect very well and lead into just giving episode 4, A New Hope, so much more depth and so much more meaning. So it's just, it's just an exciting time to be alive for Star Wars fans. I think, for people who have just a real appreciation and enjoyment of Star Wars. It's a really, really great time to be alive. That said, if you haven't started watching Kenobi yet, or if you're not caught up, please get caught up. Well, do yourself a favor because it's an amazing show. And of course, with the next handful of episodes, we're going to be doing an episode by episode analysis of Kenobi, right? So I would hate for any spoilers or anything to get ruined if you haven't seen the show yet. So go ahead and get caught up, and then you can come listen to Path of the Jedi. And that'll give you actually a more enriched, layered, deeper experience as we get into the analysis. But do not worry, you are going to have plenty of time to get caught up. Not only do we have the 3-episode buffer between Path of the Jedi and Kenobi, but I'm actually going to be going on a 1.5 to 2-week vacation, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to have the time to either pre-record episodes for the next 2 weeks or to record while I'm gone. So you're going to have that time in between to get caught up on all the Kenobi stuff and gather your thoughts before the next Path of the Jedi after today. I mean, we'll see. I may try to record like a bonus off-season episode while I'm on my trip, but nothing as intensive as a regular season Path of the Jedi. These 20 to 30-minute episodes take me anywhere from 5 to 8 hours. I mean, that's just my personal process. So that's a lot of time to take away from honestly, sitting by the pool and drinking cocktails, right? So if you guys would allow me that indulgence, I would appreciate the downtime for sure. Also, too, my time off, when I take time off, it's a great recharge creatively, right? It's a time for me to take a step back from what I'm currently doing, and all the different projects that I have going, and reassess and come up with new ideas, and again, just like recharge that battery so I can come back after the trip and continue to give you guys great content.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.
All right, so let's dive right into it. There is so much in this episode to talk about. There's so many layers. I mean, even again, outside of the plot and the story and everything that's happening, thematically, there are really a lot of rich layers to this particular episode. And so that alone gets me excited about the entire series because there's so much depth to it. Starting off, it's a big block of time that we're missing from Obi-Wan's narrative, right? From his timeline. We see him at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and then it goes straight into episode 4, A New Hope, and he's already an old man, right? And it then becomes Luke's story. We do get a glimpse of him in Rebels, I think 1 or 2 episodes from that animated series, but beyond that, there's nothing to fill that narrative, right? And so it's this particular series, and with the premiere episode, it's thrusting us into a lot of catch up, right? They're like, we have to get caught up, and there's a lot of gaps, a lot of holes to fill in that storyline. So there's that. Outside of that, as I said, thematically, there's so many layers. There's so many layers to what's going on. And that's what I like to discuss on the show, that you guys know, because that then gives us the discussions that are more pertinent to our own experiences here on Earth. And the one theme that kept jumping out at me after, and I've seen the episode 5 times now at this point, and I couldn't get this out of my head. It was just such, for me anyways, the way I experienced and watched the episode, this theme kept calling to me, and it really is, yeah, you guys are going to hate me for it, but it's blank slate, #blank slate. For those of you who are new listeners to the show, blank slate is a principle that I've been teaching for about a year and a half now to the various groups and individuals that I mentor. And it basically, blank slate teaches to let go of what you think you know and who you think you are. Basically, to be more mindful and present and to be more neutral in the moment so that you can experience basically infinite possibilities, right, moving forward. Also, it means letting go of things that might be shackling you to the past. The more labels and meanings and narratives that we hold on to from the past, whether they're good or bad, no judgment there, whatever labels those are, it limits our experience, not just in the present moment, but in the future moving forward, because then we're tied, and we're tied to a very narrow and focused definition and label. And with every conceptualization, it boxes us in. Sorry, it's some really kind of heady stuff. And for those of you who want to learn more about this stuff, I mean, I'm happy to talk with you about it. A good resource would be, a good person to listen to would be Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He does some great work, and he speaks a lot about the same kind of similar ideas. And I know, sorry guys, it sounds like a complete tangent to Star Wars, but it's very, very apropos to what's happening in Obi-Wan's life. Raise your hand if you like coffee, right? If you're like any of my friends, most of them drink 1, if not multiple cups of coffee a day. I never really got into coffee because honestly, it just isn't that healthy. Or at least that's what I thought. I mean, just the sugar alone, especially in those franchise coffees. But even without the sugar, I think the worst thing about coffee is that it's really, really acidic. Excess acidity in the body, of course, leads to inflammation. And we all know inflammation is no bueno, and in the long term can lead to degenerative disease. But not anymore. Introducing Yoli Awaken Coffee. Awaken is an instant organic Colombian coffee blend with supplements that help improve mental focus, clarity, counter stress, and boost your metabolism. It also features Yoli's proprietary Awaken Alkaline Blend with Alkali, a time-released pH balancing formula that reduces the coffee's acidity without affecting the flavor. So with this coffee, you can boost your metabolism, sharpen your mental focus, and balance and support your body pH at the same time. Win, win, and win. To learn more about Awaken Coffee, visit yoli.com/Ronnie Cruz. That's YOLI.com/RONNIECRUZ. Or better yet, click on the link in the show notes of this episode and it'll take you directly to the Awaken Coffee page and see for yourself. Yoli also has a really, really convenient subscription service so you can get your Awaken Coffee every month like clockwork and not have to think about it. But wait, there's more. Right now, I'm personally running a special that goes until the end of June, June 30th, where if you purchase an Awaken Coffee and set up a monthly subscription, I'm going to send you a second package of Awaken absolutely free. That's right, 2 Awaken Coffees for the price of 1, and all you have to do is set up a monthly subscription. That's it. Drink your coffee and get healthy. When we first see Obi Wan, we are given exactly what I think is not just the theme for this premiere episode, but for the entire series, and that is finally answering the question, where does spam come from? All right. Obviously, I'm kidding. But I had to get that in there. Number one, for the soundbite, but also I can't be the only person that was thinking that, right? Like that was the first thing that popped in my mind when we saw Obi-Wan in that opening scene at the meat harvesting operation that he was working at, right? So shout out spam. I don't know if you guys are listening. I'm sure you guys are listening. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Hook a brother up with a sponsorship. I grew up on spam, guys. I love this stuff. I don't eat a lot of it now as an adult, but it ties me back to my childhood, and yeah, it's comfort food. And that's why when I saw Obi-Wan cutting that meat, it's like, oh my God, it's spam. That's how they can spam. Anyways, tangent. Back to the discussion. Well, I bring this up because the Obi-Wan that we're introduced to in this first episode, when we see him at this meat harvesting operation, he is a stark contrast. He's a mere shadow of the Obi-Wan that we used to know, the Obi-Wan that we knew in the prequel trilogies, the Obi-Wan that we knew in the Clone Wars animated series. This Obi-Wan that we see and that we're introduced to is, I mean, like I said, he's a shell of his former self. He's quiet. He is sullen. He has no interactions with the others around him. He's in exile. With the only individual that he communicates with is this Jawa, who I think steals his stuff half the time in order to sell it back to him. So this is not the Obi-Wan that we know, and clearly he's holding on to the traumas that he experienced 10 years prior, right? 10 years since Order 66, 10 years since the fall of the Jedi, 10 years since he lost all the people that he cared the most for. So he's clearly been carrying these burdens of regret, of grief, of remorse, of even guilt, whatever other negative associations he has from those events that happened 10 years ago. And I think justifiably so, right? Fair enough, because this is a natural response. It's a response to the mental, emotional, physical trauma that he experienced during those times, a protective mechanism to keep that from happening again, albeit unconscious, right? And all of this really reads through, the characterization, through Ewan's performance, through the writing, through everything. You can feel the heavy, heavy burden that Obi-Wan has carried all these years. I mean, just look at his relationship with Owen Lars. Even that is strained at best. So we get an Obi-Wan that is, again, a shadow of his former self. And if you're thinking that it's not that easy to just simply let go of such a traumatic past event, you'd be absolutely right. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. Even looking at Obi-Wan in just this particular episode, yes, he is holding on to past traumas. Clearly, he's holding on to all those negative associations from those traumatic events, and it's drastically and dramatically affected his life. However, there was something from his past that he did let go of, that he did disassociate himself from, and that is being a Jedi. We talked about this last week. Obi-Wan was the Boy Scout, right? He was the consummate Jedi. He knew nothing else. I mean, he's been a Jedi his entire life, but all of that was replaced because of the massively, massively traumatic events around Order 66. He went from Jedi Master Obi Wan Kenobi to Hermit Ben that lives in a cave. So is letting go of the past easy? No, absolutely not. I'm not saying that. But is it possible? Yes, 100% it is possible. And if we approach things if we continue to practice our mindfulness and being in the moment and being present and approaching things with neutrality, with that blank slate, then we are going to be less saddled with all those things that we could potentially be carrying as burdens on our backs from the past. This is one of the most useful things you can do moving forward, to live more intentionally as opposed to living reactively from past anchors and past associations. And my guess is this is exactly the journey that we're going to see with Obi-Wan. He's going to start to shed these past burdens and let go of these things, and in order for him to be able to do what he needs to do in this series, right? And I'm not going to get into the next couple of episodes because I've already seen them, but you guys are in for quite a ride, and I think watching Obi-Wan go through this is going to be a beautifully enlightening experience. Now, there's definitely more that I want to dig into from this premiere episode of Kenobi. However, we've ran a little long today already, right, on today's show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it up and save this stuff for the next show, which, I'm not sure when that's going to be. I really, in my heart, I want to be able to give you guys an episode while I'm gone, while I'm on vacation. But the reality of it is it takes so much time. It's really, it's pretty an intensive process for me creatively. And so I want to be able to give you guys as much of my best attention and care to these shows. So it may not be for another 2 weeks until we continue this discussion. In the meantime, again, that gives you plenty of time to get caught up on Kenobi because it's going to be worth it. This show is absolutely amazing, guys. It's amazing. In the meantime, there are a couple things that you can do to really help us out on the show here. First and foremost, if you're not already connected with us on our socials, find us on Facebook and Twitter. It's POTJ Podcast for both of those things. Just hit us up. I try to stay as active as I can on those. And if you have a longer message or you want to discuss things, even deeper, then you can email us at info@pathofthejedi.com. Feel free to, discuss or ask questions about anything that we've talked about in the past shows, and then on top of those things, give us a rating and review if that's available on the particular platform that you happen to be listening on. Give us a rating and a review. Well, okay, so I take that back. If you don't like the show, then just move along, right? Right? But if you like it, if you're enjoying it, if you're getting a lot out of it, go ahead and leave us a rating and a review. That would really help us out, in the searches and things like that. And then even more than the ratings and the reviews, go ahead and subscribe, right? If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, number one, this will help you stay up to date and you'll get notified anytime there's a new episode that's released. But number two, it also does, again, help us out to be more discoverable. The more subscribers that we get, the more we get bumped up and pushed into the search engines, right? The search engines. So that would be a great help to us. And of course, if you're really, really enjoying it, feel free to share this with people that you know, your friends, your family, anybody that you might think would enjoy our discussions, anybody that enjoys, Star Wars, anybody that enjoys personal development. All right, so now it's time for the shout out. This week's shout out goes to Moses Ingram. That's right, Moses Ingram herself, the amazing actor who plays Third Sister on the show Kenobi. All right, so there's plenty of reasons to give Moses a shout out, and I'm going to give you mine, right? I'm going to give you my reaction. I initially was a little bit thrown off when I was first introduced to her on the show, not in person. I wish, right? I wish I was introduced to her in person. But talking about the character on the show, it was so different. Her portrayal of the Third Sister, the character Third Sister, whose name is Reva, was so different from anything that we've really seen in the Star Wars universe that I was really jarred by it, and I didn't know what to make of it on my first viewing. But as I've watched the show, especially the first episode, over and over again for the analysis for today's episode, I realized how, at least for me, mesmerizing her performance is. the level of anger and just like seething hate that she portrays in this character of Reva is so real and so authentic that I can't take my eyes off of it. Like I said, I've watched this first episode of Kenobi multiple times and different sections multiple times within each reviewing, and every time she comes up on screen, I'm glued to it, man. I can't take my eyes off it, and that to me is the mark of a great actor. And we're gonna talk more about Reva in the next episode as we continue this discussion of the Obi Wan premiere. But for now, I just want to commend Moses Ingram for just her amazing performance. I've never seen her in anything else, so this is my first exposure to Moses Ingram, and I gotta say she's blowing my socks off. So I cannot wait to see her more in this show, number one, and whatever else that she does. So Moses, if you're out there listening, and of course, why wouldn't you be listening to Path of the Jedi, right? Why wouldn't you be listening? But anyways, if you're out there listening, I just want to say thank you for putting it all out there, for leaving nothing on the table with this performance. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you've brought to the table, to the Star Wars universe. And yeah, well, that's that. This shout out for this week goes to you. Yep. All right, folks, so if there's anyone or any group of individuals that you'd like to give a shout out to here on Path of the Jedi, we'd love to do that for you. Please send a message to info@pathofthejedi.com with shout out in the subject heading, and just, leave us the message, and I'd gladly read it here on the show. Or you can send an MP3 even, right? Like, I'd love to play your MP3 here on the show as well. So again, it's info@pathofthejedi.com, and leave shout out in the subject heading. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate your guys' patience. And thank you for allowing me a little bit of a break as I take a hiatus here for the next 2 weeks. We'll definitely come back here and come back strong to finish our discussion on this premiere episode of Obi-Wan and, of course, the rest of the series. So until then, guys, please, everybody, take care out there. Be well, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.